Well, thank you. That's a big crowd. I want to start out and let you know I've got the best Sunday school teacher in the world, Bobby Mitchell, and he suggested that I get up here and talk. And as I was sitting out there earlier watching everyone up here, I thought, you know, if you listened to Bruce Cook yesterday talk about that swim in the pool, they said, you know, you're going to be ready for that long swim when you kind of feel like you're going to hyperventilate and you're a little dizzy. And I was thinking, I hope the same's true for getting in front of this crowd, then I'll be ready. But anyway, no, the business I'm in is structured settlements. And so I work with, of all things, plaintiff attorneys. When they settle cases, I help with the financial aspects of the settlement. But I never meant to get into that business, and I thought what I would do is just share kind of a story with you that I've shared with Bobby, and it's really, I wanted, though, to, as people were getting up saying their favorite verses, I thought I would kind of give you one of mine too. It's Psalm 34:6, and it's, this poor man called to the Lord, and the Lord heard him and delivered him from all his troubles. And that one's always been a special one to me. So anyway, I thought I would just kind of tell you a business story about God's faithfulness and His mercy and grace over me in business. So I started out in the insurance business with doing insurance planning, life insurance primarily, and developed a niche working with Fortune 500 executives out of Atlanta, and that kind of progressed and was going well. And through that, I had an opportunity that popped up to do a structured settlement on the side. I didn't really know what it was, but I was asked to do one. And like most good insurance people, you say, yeah, I can do that, and then figure out as you go how to really do it. And so this family that I did a structured settlement for had a child, a son the same age as one of my sons. And he was brain damaged through an accident. And it broke my heart. They brought him up to the office, and I was able to help him financially in a pretty significant way. And it basically felt more rewarding than most of the work I had done, and I got paid well for doing it. And I thought, this isn't a bad business. So I started trying to develop that business, what I thought was kind of on the side, but I sensed that I should do this full time. I quickly learned that working with trial lawyers was tough. I didn't know any, never really had wanted to know any up until that point. And it was a hard group to break into. It's a tight-knit group, the plaintiffs bar. I didn't have a lot in common with them, and it was just tough. So one day, out of frustration, I went in my office, and I've told several of you this story. I shut the door harder than I should have. You might say I slammed it, and sat down at my desk, and I just started to pray, and I said, Lord, if you want me to stop doing structured settlements, that's okay. Tell me now, because I'm tired of bloodying my nose up every day. It's hard. But if you want me to do it, you're going to have to show me how. I really don't know how to do this. And this has happened twice that I know of in my life, but at that moment it was as if a light bulb went off. I grabbed a legal pad, started downloading some pretty simple things. And our pastor in Atlanta, Michael Youssef, I shared this story with him, and he said, Mark, that's happened a lot more than twice. You just weren't listening. So anyway, I wrote these things down. It was real simple. What it was take your 6-month, 1 year, and 3-year business plans and throw them in the trash. It was meaningless for me at that point. Throw them in the trash. And write down 5 or 6 things that you need to do every day and every week to be successful in this business. So I wrote down 6 things, and then it was weight those. How important are they relative to one another? So obviously, some things are a little more important, but they're all crucial. So I did that and put it in a spreadsheet and created a little weekly spreadsheet. And this thing would grade me, score me. So I would come in on Monday with a 0. And the idea was to leave at the end of the week with 100. Well, that didn't happen. I quickly noticed in the first 6 to 8 weeks what the issue was. It was I was very busy, but not on these sort of things that mattered most. I started having weekly scores of 37, 43, F- kind of stuff. And so it turns out that I just kept using this. I was embarrassed to show it to anyone, so I did it myself. And I thought, if I'm supposed to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to nail it. I'm going to put everything else aside. I'm going to get an A on this every week. And I started doing it, and they were things like call a certain number of plaintiff attorneys every week, have a certain number of meetings, clear my to-do list every day, which was maybe the hardest, and just be consistent with those. Well, I did, and I started getting 90 to 100s every week, and 6 months into it, my business, the trend line kind of went like that, and it really just started to take off. And it was obvious to me it was because I needed to focus on these fundamental actions and not on the results. And so I got further into that and had lunch with a business mentor of mine. Those from Atlanta may know a fellow named Hank McCamish, but tremendously successful in business and a great Christian fella. And Hank asked me a question no one had ever asked before in the middle of this lunch. He said, "Mark, I know what you do, what your business is, but how do you know you do the right thing every day?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "When you come in the morning, you leave in the evening, how do you know you've done the right thing?" So I shared with him the story I just shared with y'all, and I kind of was reluctant to hear his response. And he looked at me and said, "You need to package that up and let other people use it." And I said, "Package what, Hank?" And he said, "Your system." And I said, "It's not really a system, it's just a little spreadsheet." And he said, "Well, it works for two reasons. One is it's simple. People like simple things and stick with simple things. If it's complex, it's like a diet. They get behind and they say, hey, I'll start over Monday. Let's get another bowl of ice cream." And so I said, "Well, that's neat, Hank." And he said, "The other reason it works is because you're focused on proper actions as opposed to results. The results follow if you do these things right." And I said, "Well, that's what I've learned through this." But I didn't take his advice and kept using it about 3 years on my own, and it kept going, and my wife was the only one that knew I was doing it. Anyway, it eventually a couple of friends started using it that needed help, and I knew them well enough to share it and not be too embarrassed with my little spreadsheet. And same thing, they had great results in their business, and I thought maybe Hank was right. Maybe other people should use this. And so we finally decided, put it online, make it a web application, let other people be able to get in and use it. And these two fellas said, "Can we have breakfast with you every other Monday to give you our weekly scores?" And I said, "I don't want your weekly scores. Why would we do that?" And they said, "Because if we give you our weekly score, we'll have better scores because you're holding us accountable." And I said, "Well, just do what I do, beat yourself up." And they said, "No, we want to meet with you every other Monday." And so we tried, but we were so busy and had a lot of things going on, it didn't last. And so we decided, okay, develop this web app to where you could meet online and not have to have breakfast, but in a sense, we could have breakfast online every day, and I could see their score, and they could also see mine. So reluctantly, I did this, and it kind of snowballed, and a lot of business people found out about it, wanted to start using it. So it got to be this thing that I couldn't push away anymore. And we did a capital raise, which I had never done, and raised money to start this business. And so now we're in our alpha test phase and have a couple hundred people in testing it out, and everyone seems to love it. So it's a turn I never meant to take, but it's been fun. I've learned a lot, got to know a lot of neat people through it. And if any of y'all want to participate, it's free. You can just, we can get you an invite to be in our test because the feedback's valuable to us. But the name of this app, it's kind of a funny name. It's called IRunURun.com. And the reason is when this idea came to me 6, 7 years ago, a verse did too, and it was 2 Samuel 22, 35 through 37. It's David saying, "He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You give me your shield of victory. You stoop down to make me great. You broaden the path beneath me so my ankles do not turn." And that was on my spreadsheets for 6 years. And I thought, it is fitting. He's training my hands through this for battle, whatever those battles are. And so I started reading all the David and Goliath stuff and a lot of David stuff after that. And one thing that's always stood out at me with the David's Goliath story was how every version I've read, David charged him. David ran at the giant, it says. And so I thought, well, if my giant is increasing sales, or being a better father, whatever these things are that I want to measure, if I run at them and have others run with me in accountability, together we can win. So the name's IRunURun.com. So kind of a funny way to get at the name. But one interesting thing that I'll kind of close with, this has taken a turn in a lot of ways, and one is that we've seen, I was thinking business all along, but every time I've shared this with an athlete, they lock right in. And the reason is I've talked to some pro athletes about it, that it's clearly defined from the time you're 4 or 5 years old what you need to do to be a good third baseman, for instance. And there's lots of accountability built in. So you practice these actions, you become a great third baseman, you've got team members, coaches, everyone you're accountable to. In business, it's vague. It's not so clearly defined. So the idea is break it down, define what's important, measure those things, and be accountable to them, to others for them. So that's really it. We have one screenshot I think we can put up just to show you, hopefully it makes sense here. So yeah, you put in, this is actually mine, I think. You put in what's most important to you that you feel like you need to be accountable for. You check off the days you do it, put in the amount. So if you want to run 50 miles a week, you put in how much you ran each day, and it scores you on a weekly basis, and you have a team there. You can see how they're doing, communicate through it to the team members, and so it actually becomes sort of competitive and somewhat fun as well. But that's about it. That's the story of what God's doing for us.